In my past life, my sister and I depended on each other for survival. But in the end, she stole my boyfriend and together, they transferred the company I had painstakingly built into their names. In my final moments, the TV broadcasted the live wedding of my sister and my ex-boyfriend. My sister smiled sweetly at the camera. I want to thank someone here, and that's my sister. Without her, we wouldn't be where we are today. Anger consumed me, and I coughed up blood, dying on the hospital bed. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn. My sister clutched at my clothes, looking pitiful. Sister, from now on, we are each other's only family. I lowered my eyes and coldly said, "Whose family with you?" Chapter 1. When I opened my eyes, Zhang was tugging at my clothes, looking pitiful. Sister, from now on, we are each other's only family. I was stunned. Hadn't I died on the hospital bed? But soon, my mind cleared. I had been reborn, and I was now back in high school with Zhang. The Zhang before me still had a youthful face, starkly different from the flamboyant person she would become. Seeing my lack of response, Zhang continued nervously. Sister, I only have you left. You can't abandon me. Hey! In my previous life, not only did I not abandon Zhang, but I also worked hard to earn money, establishing several companies. I provided Zhang with the best resources, giving her everything she wanted. And in return, I was betrayed by her. She and my boyfriend conspired to gradually transfer my companies into their names. Their wedding was lavish, broadcasted live online, while I was sent to the hospital by them, dying from anger. I lowered my eyes and smirked. Whose family with you? Chapter 2. Zhang did not expect me to say that, and her big eyes immediately welled up with tears. But I had no sympathy for Zhang. In my past life, I lost everything because I repeatedly sympathized with her. The first time she embezzled my property and I found out, she looked at me with tear-filled eyes, and my heart softened, letting her go unpunished. After all, after our parents died, Zhang and I were truly each other's only family. How could I possibly abandon her? Now, however, I ruthlessly pulled my clothes away. Mom and Dad left us an inheritance of 10,000. We'll split it equally, and you shouldn't look for me anymore. Zhang was dumbfounded by my actions. She looked at me in disbelief. Sister, weren't you the one who loved me the most? I loved you too much. That's why you dared to take my things again and again. I sneered, then turned and left. Tonight, I'll transfer your share of the money to your card. Ignoring Zhang calls behind me, I did not look back even once. In my past life, she told me herself that she saw my talent for making money, so she pretended to be pitiful, ensuring we stayed together forever. I want to see, without me, how you will fare in this life. My dear sister. Chapter 3. The next day at school, the way people looked at me was odd. It was as if I were an evil witch. Sure enough, I looked around. Zhang sat at her desk, her shoulders shaking as she cried. My mom and dad died in a car accident last month. My sister is all I have left, but she doesn't want me anymore. A circle of classmates surrounded her, comforting her, and upon hearing this, they all glared at me. I had no hesitation and pulled out my books from my desk, starting to study. The surrounding voices were incessant. How can Zhang still focus on her studies? She's her sister's only family, yet she abandoned her sister. If Zhang can abandon her sister, what else is she capable of? So cruel. I used to think she was nice. I continued to study, ignoring the voices around me. In my past life, I neglected my studies to focus on starting my business, encountering many unnecessary troubles and limitations along the way. This life, I must study hard. The knowledge in the books felt unfamiliar to me. I worked on a few problems, circled some that I didn't understand, and stood up, only to be stopped by Zhang. Zhang's eyes still looked red. Sister, the classmates are talking about you. I didn't mean to. I was just feeling very upset, and when people asked, I told them. I nodded, expressionless. What you said is true. You're not wrong. I indeed don't want you. With that, I gently pushed her aside. Move, please. Zhang Ting's face turned pale. Chapter 4. For several weeks, I focused on studying, seeking help from teachers whenever I encountered difficulties. Finally, my hard work paid off, and my grades soared to the top 20 in the class. I had never achieved such grades in my past life. In my previous life, I was always anxious about making money, as the inheritance left by my parents was limited, and I had to work hard for both my and Zhang Ting's future. So, I never took the college entrance exam and gave up on my studies voluntarily. Zhang Ting, on the other hand, ranked last in this exam. In my past life, Zhang Ting's grades were always poor, and she was always at the bottom of the class. I sent her abroad to study, allowing her to become an international student. She studied her favorite major abroad, and the first thing she did upon returning was to steal my boyfriend. I drew a line on the notebook with my pen. This life, sister, you will fend for yourself. Behind me, people whispered. How did Zhang Zi improve her grades so much? Yeah! At this moment, Zhang Ting's whispering voice came. I saw my sister stuffing cheat sheets into her pocket during the exam. The surrounding voices grew louder. I knew Zhang Zi was cheating. I smiled and stood up. Indeed, if you accuse me of cheating, you need to provide evidence. Also, there are cameras in the classroom. Shall we check the footage? The surrounding voices quieted down. At that moment, a voice came from the crowd. All right, let's check the footage. If Zhang Zi cheated, we will report it to the teacher. It was Zhang Ting's best friend. Forget it. Zhang Ting said softly. My sister didn't cheat on purpose. We're all classmates, there's no need to make a big deal out of it. I smiled. Could it be that you're feeling guilty, sister? Slander also comes with consequences. The surrounding voices grew louder, and Zhang Ting's face turned pale. If my sister insists on checking the footage, then let's check. Soon, a group of people went to check the camera footage. As expected, the camera showed me diligently working on my exam paper. The footage was clear enough to capture my expressions. The surrounding voices fell silent. I closed my English book and smiled. So many people saw it. I didn't cheat. Now, shouldn't the person who spread the rumor apologize? Zhang Ting's face turned pale. The people around started whispering. I didn't expect Zhang Ting to be like this. Wow, Zhang Ting would do something like that. Finally, she couldn't withstand the pressure and tearfully said, Sister, I'm sorry. Chapter 5. The surrounding discussions grew louder. Zhang Ting's friend comforted her. Forget it, you didn't mean to. Then she glared at me. How can you treat your sister like this? I sneered. Anyone who didn't know better would think she's your sister. Ignoring the unpleasant expressions around me, I walked out. Behind me, Zhang Ting started crying. Back in the classroom, I continued working on my assignments. The earlier incident didn't affect me at all. Besides, my first opportunity was coming soon. I needed to be in my best state to seize this opportunity. For 3 months, I immersed myself in my studies, making rapid progress. In contrast, Zhang Ting indulged her desires, spending the money I gave her on many things. As a student, having 50,000 yuan in her account was too much for her to handle. Wow, is that the latest handbag? It's so beautiful. Zhang Ting proudly showed off the bag. It wasn't that expensive, only slightly over 5,000. The surrounding voices were filled with envy. Ting is so rich. I thought for a moment and decided to remind Zhang Ting. Don't spend all your money. Zhang Ting frowned impatiently. Mind your own business. Fine. Of course, it's not my concern. Just don't come asking me for money later. During the holiday, I used my own money to buy a batch of fabric. In my previous life, I started my career by selling clothes, so no one knew clothing better than me. My company had renowned fashion designers, but now I had no one to design clothes for me. I took a cab to a small village. Chapter 6. Under the dim light, I extended my hand to the boy in front of me. Gunayan, I came here specifically to find you. The boy looked up, a bit confused. His fair face had captivating eyes, and I knew they held endless inspiration. I smiled. I saw your work published in a magazine. Your designs are mesmerizing, and I want to be your partner. The dim light, the dilapidated house with peeling walls, the entire place seemed ready to collapse. When Gunayan brought me to this house, he said with a smile. I grew up here. At that time, he was a renowned designer in the country, winning numerous awards. He looked at me, his eyes filled with countless stars. When I was 17, I published my first design in a magazine. I smiled. Gunayan, if I had met you earlier, I would have asked you to be my designer as soon as you published in that magazine. Gunayan lowered his eyes, smiling at me. October 3, 2010. I was puzzled. What? The date I published my first design in the magazine. I was just joking. After all, people can't travel through time. But little did I know, I really did travel through time. I was only 30 years old when I died, and now I had traveled back 13 years. Nice to meet you again, my partner. Gunayan had been by my side from the start of my company. Now, I would partner with Gunayan even earlier. The boy in front of me, after a moment of confusion, gently took my hand. I am willing to work with you. Chapter 7. During the entire holiday, Gunayan drew over 10 design sketches. I contacted a factory to produce the clothes based on the sketches. The 50,000 yuan I had was all invested in this business. But fortunately, I didn't lose this battle. 3 months later, I looked at the income on the balance sheet. 200,000 yuan. I gave Gunayan 100,000, keeping the remaining 100,000 in my bank account. To my surprise, Zhang Ting had spent all her money. Zhang Ting grabbed my clothes, her face covered in tears. Sister, please give me some money. I don't even have money for school anymore. You can't just ignore me. I looked at her coldly. Sell your handbag, and you'll have money. Zhang Ting choked on her sobs. Sister, we share the same parents. How can you treat me like this? Good question. I had wondered about this countless times in my past life too. Zhang Ting and I shared the same parents, so why did she treat me like this? She stole the company I worked hard to build, and she took my boyfriend. But no one could answer me. I smiled and lifted her chin. Don't ever think you can take a single penny from me again. The next day, Zhang Ting made a scene in class. My parents left a lot of inheritance, but my sister took it all. Zhang Ting cried at her desk, her sobs heart-wrenching. So, after this month, I might not be able to stay with you all in school. I'll have to work to support myself. Chapter 8. The surrounding students quickly started shouting. What? Zhang Ting, does that mean you can't continue studying? Soon, someone walked up to me and slammed a book on my desk. I looked up to see a boy in front of me. His face was red with anger. You're Zhang Ting's sister. How can you take all the inheritance and not let Zhang Ting study? I used to like you so much. I sneered and stood up. I met the eyes of everyone in the class. I think my dear sister needs to tell a better lie. If I took all the inheritance, where did Zhang Ting get the money to buy a handbag worth more than 5,000 yuan? I looked at Zhang Ting. Sell your handbag and you can continue studying. Zhang Ting's face turned red, her eyes brimming with tears. I turned to the boy in front of me. And do I need your affection? It's disgusting that someone as stupid as you likes me. The boy's face turned pale, and he left the classroom awkwardly. I sat down and opened my notebook. When soldiers come, use a general to block. When water comes, use earth to cover. I, Zhangzi, have never been afraid of trouble. Chapter 9. I invested all my money into a new production line, and Gu Nian gave me his money too. If I remember correctly, this was the poorest time in Gu Nian's life. His eyes sparkled. I'm giving you all this money to invest. I hesitated, half jokingly. What if we lose it all? You know, doing business is very risky now. But Gu Nian's gaze was firm. I'm giving you all this money. We're partners, aren't we? In the business world, I've seen countless cunning people, cautious and calculating. I blinked and took the card. You won't be disappointed. In just a month, Gu Nian and I opened a clothing store. Earlier than in my past life. The media widely reported it, saying a genius girl from our school opened a clothing store at the age of 18. Zhang Ting saw it too. When classmates handed her the newspaper, Zhang Ting's face was stiff. Jealousy, envy, and greed flashed across her face, then turned to ashen. But my sister wouldn't give me a single penny. I happened to pass by her desk and heard this, stopping in front of her. Why should I give you any money? I earned it all through hard work. Zhang Ting was stunned. But sister, you used to dote on me the most. That was then, this is now. It was because I pampered her too much, giving her an escape route for everything, that she dared to take my things without fear. This life, I won't let her take anything from me. Chapter 10. Time flew by, and my grades stabilized in the top 10 of the class, ensuring I could get into a top university. In my past life, I suffered a lot due to my lack of education, so I now placed great importance on it. Zhang Ting, on the other hand, grew increasingly materialistic. She began to complain. Why didn't mom and dad earn more money? They didn't leave me much inheritance. She sold her handbag to continue studying at this school. Zhang Ting did come to me. After all, I had opened my second clothing store, and the brand had gained some local recognition. Sister, I beg you, my grades are so poor that I'll only get into a junior college. Please help me. I smiled. How? Zhang Ting's eyes widened, filled with greed. Sister, send me abroad, let me be an international student. It'll be easy to find a job when I return. Besides, you have the capability now, don't you? I sneered. Sending you abroad costs tens of thousands a year. What makes you think you're worth it? Zhang Ting's face turned pale. I'm your biological sister, aren't I? I nodded. Shouldn't a sister help ease her siblings' burden? I smiled. But as your sister, I can tutor you for free. Before the college entrance exam, getting into a public junior college won't be a problem. Zhang Ting slowly released my clothes and then said harshly. Zhangzi, you're so heartless. Chapter 11. The college entrance exams arrived quickly, and Zhang Ting stumbled into the exam hall in a daze. Her mind was blank, and unsurprisingly, she failed. As for me, I successfully got accepted into my dream university. The day I received my acceptance letter, the first thing I did was text Gu Nian. At that moment, Gu Nian was in his studio, sketching designs, the sound of his pencil softly scratching against the paper. His voice on the phone was joyful. Congratulations. I'll treat you to dinner today. I smiled and said, all right. Just as I hung up the phone, I noticed someone standing in front of me. It was Zhang Ting. She was wearing a beautiful pink dress, with makeup that made her look pitiful. But her expression was vicious. I had seen this expression many times before. On the older Zhang Ting's face. I smiled. You came back too, my dear sister? Zhang Ting stood before me and finally spoke. Sister, I didn't expect you to live so well even after starting over. But just wait, I won't let you have it easy. Is that so? Unfortunately, since I founded my company, I've heard all kinds of threats, and none of them have ever made a ripple in my heart. Let's wait and see. That evening, I went out to dinner with Gu Nian. Gu Nian's face still had a bit of youthful innocence, different from the refined and mature look he would have later. At the dinner table, I raised my glass with a smile. "Let's have a drink, Gunayan." Gunayan's hands were beautiful, and as he took the glass, the wine slid down his well-defined fingers. No wonder those hands belonged to a great designer, they looked perfect holding a pencil and sketching. He gazed at me seriously. "Zhangzi, I wish you a bright future." I lowered my eyes, smiling. "Designer Gu, I wish you a bright future as well." Time flowed on, and Gunayan and I had said similar words before. Back then, I had just founded my first company, but it soon faced a funding crisis. Many employees left, but Gunayan stayed. We drank together, and he looked into my eyes. "Zhangzi, I wish you a bright future." "Really, Gunayan? It's always been just you by my side." Chapter 12. A year passed quickly. I didn't expect to run into familiar faces. Zhang Ting and Fu Yan. Memories of the past flashed before my eyes. Fu Yan and Zhang Ting had stolen my company's confidential files together, and they slowly devoured my company. Fu Yan held Zhang Ting by the waist, and they looked incredibly affectionate. Zhang Ting smiled. "Sister, I'm really sorry. Your company is ours now." The ones who betrayed me were the two people closest to me. When I met Fu Yan, he was a poor university student. I supported him, helping him pay off his student loans and get into graduate school. But I never imagined that he would betray me later. A real-life version of the farmer and the snake. Now, Zhang Ting and Fu Yan looked just as affectionate. Zhang Ting turned and saw me. "Oh sister, long time no see." The man beside her slowly turned as well. At the moment our eyes met, I thought of 1,000 ways to get back at them. A hint of resentment flashed in Fu Yan's eyes as he walked up to me. "Long time no see, ZZ." "Hey!" I lifted my hand and slapped him hard. Fu Yan's head turned to one side from the force. "Don't ever let me see you again, or I'll hit you every time I do." Fu Yan wiped the corner of his mouth. "I know you still care about me, that's why you hit me." I felt nauseous and turned my head away from him. Zhang Ting stood beside us. "Sister, just wait. This time, your property will still end up in our hands." Disgusting. Both Zhang Ting and Fu Yan. I raised my hand and slapped Zhang Ting hard. This slap is long overdue. For being ungrateful. I grabbed her hair and continued slapping her. This slap is for our parents. They wanted us to take care of each other, but you kept taking my things. This isn't what they wanted to see. I slapped her hard, leaving 2 red marks on her face. Zhang Ting covered her face, crying out. "Stop hitting me." I lowered my hand. See you next time. Chapter 13. Not long after, my company successfully went public. During this time, Gu Nian honed his skills and became a highly respected designer in the industry. I walked into Gu Nian's studio and pulled out a chair to sit down. The studio had a warm color scheme, with orange curtains and tulip-shaped wall lamps. I smiled at Gu Nian. "When you became my partner, I told you, you wouldn't regret it." "Yes." I felt a bit smug. Gu Nian, just wait. In 3 years, no, 2 years, your name will be known by every designer in the fashion industry. Gu Nian's pen never stopped moving. His designs were always full of inspiration, and each new piece quickly set market trends. The company's profits were overflowing. I must have been a bit overconfident as I stood up and bent over to see what Gu Nian was drawing. But when I saw his drawing, I froze. Gu Nian, designer Gu, wasn't drawing a fashion design. He was drawing me. Gu Nian looked up, a hint of panic in his eyes. The next second, he covered the drawing. I swallowed hard. "No, I didn't see anything." Gu Nian spoke up. I took a step back, feeling flustered for the first time. In the business world, I faced many people who tried to cause me trouble without feeling flustered. I didn't panic when the company faced a funding crisis in my previous life. But now, my heart was racing. I fled. Chapter 14. But soon, the funding issues that appeared in my previous life re-emerged. I hadn't yet figured out what happened that day when I was forced to get busy. I was busy negotiating new partnerships, taking on new business. This went on for a while until suddenly, the media reported that I had taken my parents' inheritance, forcing my sister to only get into a junior college. Overnight, I was trending on all major platforms with many people criticizing me. I can't believe the CEO of XWebu fashion company is like this, it's unbelievable. I even wrote about her in my essays. A female CEO, how rare. Too much. This news was undoubtedly a devastating blow to the company, especially at this critical stage. I lowered my eyes and shook my head. My foolish sister. How could she be as brainless as in my previous life? Outside the company, a crowd gathered at the entrance, reporters surrounding me with microphones, even cameras rolling. Miss Zhang Zi, your sister Zhang Ting recently claimed online that your parents left an inheritance of 10,000, but you took her share to invest in your company. Is this true? I smiled slightly and met Zhang Ting's eyes at the door. Sorry, I can only say that slander is also illegal. The reporters continued to thrust their microphones at me, the camera flashes blinding. I shielded my eyes with my hand. I'm sorry, I don't want to answer any more questions. The truth will come out eventually. Unfortunately, the reporters didn't intend to let me go, and someone from the crowd reached out and grabbed my arm. At that moment, someone suddenly appeared beside me. There was a fresh mint scent. She said she doesn't want to answer any more questions. My heart started to race again. Gu Nian used his coat to shield me from the blinding lights and escorted me into the company. At the door stood Zhang Ting and Fu Yan. Fu Yan's expression turned strange. He spoke. ZZ, your taste has gotten worse. Is this the person you like in this life? I smiled, then raised my hand and slapped him hard. I told you, I'll slap you every time I see you. Just as I was about to raise my hand again, I saw Zhang Ting already covering her face tightly. If I slap him, I can't slap you again. I didn't bother arguing with Zhang Ting, shook my wrist and walked into my office. In a dark corner of the office was my parents' will. But I found it missing. Chapter 15. Zhang Ting stood at the door laughing. Sister, do you think I would fight a losing battle while smearing your name? I stood still, thinking over the timeline. Oh, I see. From the beginning, the contents of the box with my parents' will were missing when I moved into the company. My sister had already stolen it when she started smearing my name. When she was 17. When I mentioned splitting the inheritance. My eyes grew cold. Zhang Ting was extremely smug. I stole our parents' will when I was 17. After all, my always loving sister suddenly refused to be my only family. I was scared. Beside me, Gu Nian tried to comfort me. It's okay. Fu Yan stood before me. ZZ, for our past relationship, we just want your company. Then we'll say you compensated Ting Ting. I stared at Fu Yan. Who do you think you are? Fu Yan's face darkened. This is why I never liked you, you never showed mercy in many things. I sneered. Do I need your affection? After leaving the company, the cold wind made me shiver. Gu Nian took off his coat and placed it on me. Don't worry, I recorded everything just now. I looked up and met his eyes. Thank you. But I could wait a bit before releasing the recording. My company was just emerging, and the attention from this incident might be an opportunity. Chapter 16. I continued attending social events as usual. At one such event, I encountered Zhang Ting and Fu Yan. They wore expensive outfits, Zhang Ting's chin held high, just like in my previous life. Fu Yan held Zhang Ting's chin and they kissed passionately. Such an eyesore. Gu Nian stood beside me, his suit matching my dress. they had borrowed a lot of money to attend this event. They were sure I would give them the company. I've said it before, my sister is always so foolish. Fu Yan noticed me, and their intimate pose immediately loosened. I didn't know if it was an illusion, but I saw a hint of guilt on Fu Yan's face. Zhang Ting's expression stiffened, and she looked at me. Halfway through the event, Zhang Ting handed me a glass of wine. Sister, let me toast you. A wolf in sheep's clothing, no good intentions. I looked at the 2 glasses of wine. I won't drink. Zhang Ting's face stiffened. Sister, you don't think I spiked the wine, do you? I nodded. Yes. Zhang Ting didn't expect me to be so blunt and fell silent. She said, I didn't spike it. Like I could believe her. Fu Yan stood beside her. ZZ, can't you stop thinking the worst of people? I choked. Who's the bad one here? Our standoff quickly drew the attention of the crowd. Zhang Ting lowered her eyes. I knew my sister wouldn't accept me. After all, my sister took all the inheritance, let alone now. People around started pointing fingers. Zhang Zi is too much. If Zhang Zi accepts this drink, she might get out of this public opinion mess. Young people these days really. I laughed. Zhang Ting pushed the glass closer to me. The implication was clear. I casually picked up a glass, watching her smile grow. Just as I was about to drink, I changed my tone. I want the one in your hand. Chapter 17. Zhang Ting's face stiffened. Sister, you don't have to be so wary of me. Will you drink it? Zhang Ting's face showed clear reluctance. Most of the people at the event were seasoned business people, and seeing this scene, they began whispering again. Really? Would a sister really harm her sibling? Impossible. If she spiked the drink, then the inheritance scandal. Zhang Ting gritted her teeth. I'll drink. She downed the wine in one gulp. I smiled. Too bad I don't want to drink any. I do think you're that bad. The room buzzed with conversation. No one expected me to say that. Gu Nian stood beside me, his scent of mint contrasting with the atmosphere of the event. After my words, all eyes were on Zhang Ting and me. Every move Zhang Ting made was magnified. And her face started turning red. I need to leave. She grabbed Fu Yan's wrist. Miss Zhang, the event isn't over, leaving abruptly isn't appropriate. Zhang Ting looked like she was about to cry. I need to use the restroom. Her voice trembled. Everyone at the event understood. Not long after Zhang Ting went to the restroom, a staff member found her there. Zhang Ting had put a large dose of drugs in the wine hoping I'd drink it, but ended up passing out herself. Just wait. Zhang Ting. After tonight, everything will change. Chapter 18. The next day, photos of Zhang Ting's humiliation at the event surfaced online. It quickly became trending news. Insider reports, in the Zhang sisters, the younger sister allegedly drugged her older sister but got a taste of her own medicine. Zhang Ting mistakenly drank the drugged wine meant for Zhang Zi and was hospitalized. The post included photos, looking very authentic. Netizens couldn't stay calm, and public opinion shifted. However, some still doubted. Could Zhang Ting be framed? After all, what kind of person takes all the inheritance from their sister? This comment spread online. Zhang Ting woke up in the hospital to face a swarm of reporters. I seized the moment and released the recording. In the recording, Zhang Ting's voice was clear. Sister, do you think I'd fight a losing battle while smearing your name? I stole our parents' will when I was 17. After all, my always loving sister suddenly refused to be my only family. I was scared. These words caused an uproar. For a time, the headlines were all about me and Zhang Ting. The company's fame skyrocketed during this drama, and I secured several partnerships, resolving the funding crisis in 3 months. Faster than in my previous life. Zhang Ting was sentenced to 3 years in prison for slander and drugging. On her way to prison, she exposed all of Fu Yan's misdeeds. Turned out, without my support in this life, Fu Yan had found a rich woman to rely on. He scammed over $1 million from her, planning to use it as a backup if he and Zhang Ting couldn't take over my company. Fu Yan was also arrested. This couple, filled with resentment, glared at each other as they were both taken into custody. A year later, everything in the company was on track. Gu Nian had become a renowned designer in the industry and took on many young designers as students. Our company expanded into other ventures, with a complete industrial chain. In the design studio, Gu Nian played with my long hair, his dark eyes captivating. I've recently drawn many beautiful pictures, all of you. I swallowed hard, letting him kiss my lips. After the kiss, Gu Nian smiled. So, President Zhang Zi, how about dating? In my past life, Gu Nian's love was restrained and patient. I always thought we were just the most compatible partners. Turns out, he was my soulmate all along. I nodded. Dating designer Gu? I'd love to.